She had exactly 5 seconds to choose. Apologize on her knees and scrub the stain with her bare hands, or step into that ring with his enforcer. Katie Duncan should have been terrified. Any rational person would have been. But standing there in that cathedral of crystal chandeliers and cold marble, surrounded by men in tailored suits who wore violence like cologne, all she could think was how badly she wanted to shatter Gu Hyojun's perfect, ruthless composure. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. What they don't tell you is that sometimes it requires a right hook and an uppercut to really make your point. Sometimes justice doesn't knock politely. It breaks down the door with bloodied knuckles and a score to settle. This is the story of Katie Duncan, a woman who went from serving champagne to the most dangerous people in Los Angeles to becoming the one thing a Korean mafia boss never saw coming. A woman who refused to break, even when breaking would have been easier. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. As we take you back to where it all began, Katie was 24 when she took the job at the Gilded Pearl. It was supposed to be temporary, just something to keep the lights on while she figured out her next move after her brother Marcus died in prison. The venue had a reputation for being exclusive, the kind of place where reservations required connections, and the tips could cover a month's rent. It seemed perfect, a fresh start. She should have known better. Her first shift, the floor manager, a man named Vincent Kim, whose nervous energy could power a small city, pulled her into the staff corridor before she even tied her apron. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a threat wrapped in a warning. Listen very carefully, Katie. There are rules here. Non-negotiable rules. She nodded, expecting the usual restaurant hierarchy. Don't talk back to the chef. Don't comp drinks without approval. Upsell the premium bottles. When the VIP suites are occupied, you don't enter unless explicitly summoned. You don't ask questions about the guests. You don't make direct eye contact unless they address you first. He paused, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped her shoulder. And if Mr. Gu is present, you treat him like he's the president, the pope, and your personal savior all rolled into one. Understand? Mr. Gu? She asked, already feeling the weight of something dangerous settling over her. Vincent's face went pale. Just do exactly what I'm telling you, and you'll be fine. She should have walked out right then. Should have recognized that any job requiring that level of deference wasn't serving food. It was serving something far more dangerous. But she needed the money. And more than that, she needed access. Marcus didn't just die in prison. He was murdered there. Stabbed 17 times in a fight. Everyone said he started. Over territory everyone said he was trying to control. But Katie's brother wasn't a gangster. He was a graphic designer who'd gotten tangled up with the wrong people. People connected to the JBOL, the Korean crime syndicate that ran half of Los Angeles from the shadows. The official report said he was dirty, that he'd been dealing secrets, playing both sides. But Katie knew Marcus. She knew the truth. Someone framed him, someone powerful enough to rewrite reality. And the Gilded Pearl? It wasn't just an exclusive restaurant. It was the JBL's crown jewel, their fortress, their throne room, their playground. Katie wasn't there to serve. She was there to hunt. 8 weeks into the job, she'd mapped every corner of the building. She knew which servers were on the payroll, which ones were just surviving. She knew the VIP suites rotated based on hierarchy, that Suite 7 was reserved for the man at the top. She knew the security cameras had blind spots near the service elevators, that the kitchen staff changed shifts at 9, that the real business happened after midnight when the restaurant closed to the public. She'd been patient, careful, invisible. Tonight, that ended. Suite 7 glowed with amber light when she pushed through the heavy double doors. A tray of premium bottles balanced on her palm. The room was a study in controlled opulence. Dark wood paneling, leather seats, the color of dried blood, a crystal chandelier that cast fractured light across the faces of men who wore their violence like bespoke suits. They barely glanced at her. To them, she was furniture, decoration. A pretty brown-skinned girl in a black dress who knew her place. Good. Let them think that. She moved through the room with practiced efficiency, setting glasses down without a sound, pouring liquor that cost more than most people's rent. Her hands were steady. Her expression was serene. Inside, her heart was a clenched fist. Because there, at the head of the table, sat Gu Hyojun. She'd seen photographs, security footage, blurry images captured by people who didn't live long enough to take better ones. But nothing prepared her for the reality of him. He was beautiful in the way sharp things are beautiful. Elegant and deadly. His suit was charcoal gray, cut so perfectly it looked painted on. His hair was pushed back from a face that could have belonged to a CEO or a movie star. All clean lines and sharp angles. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Dark, calculating, utterly devoid of mercy. This was the man who ran the JBL's West Coast operations. The man whose signature appeared on contracts that destroyed lives. The man who held the answers about what really happened to Marcus. He was speaking to someone across the table, his voice low and controlled, when Katie moved closer with the final bottle. A vintage soju sealed with gold leaf, the kind reserved for closing deals or celebrating victories. She'd practiced this moment in her tiny apartment, had rehearsed the angle, the timing, the exact pressure needed to make it look like an accident. The bottle slipped from her tray. Time crystallized. She watched the glass tumble through the air, saw the golden liquid arc like a promise, felt the cold splash hit her hands a split second before it drenched Gu Hyojun's chest. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from surprise. The kind that comes right before an execution. The soju spread across his shirt like a stain on silk, dark and damning. The scent of expensive alcohol filled the air, sharp and accusatory. Katie stepped back, her eyes wide, her mouth forming a perfect O of manufactured horror. "I'm so sorry, Don't." His voice was quiet, rougher than she expected. He stood slowly, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that felt like being pinned to a board. "Don't apologize." Around them, the other men rose from their seats. Katie recognized a few faces from her research. Lieutenants, enforcers, the kind of people who solved problems with blunt instruments and shallow graves. Gu Hyojun held up one hand. They froze. He took a step toward her, then another. Katie held her ground even though every instinct screamed at her to run. She was close enough now to see the details the photographs missed. The thin scar along his jawline. The way his pupils dilated slightly as he studied her face. The controlled fury in the set of his shoulders. "You know what that bottle was worth?" he asked softly. Katie's pulse hammered against her ribs. "I can pay for it. I'll work extra shifts. I'll $50,000. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. Vintage 1,000. 940 seconds. Huayo 41. One of 12 bottles left in existence, and you just spilled it on me like cheap wine. Someone behind him laughed, sharp and cruel. Gu Hyojun didn't look away from Katie's face. "You have two options. You can get on your knees right now, apologize properly, and clean this stain with your bare hands." He gestured to his ruined shirt, his expression unreadable. "Or you can step into the ring downstairs and face my man, Yongho." 5 seconds to choose. The room held its breath. Katie should have been terrified. Should have been calculating how fast she could run, which exit was closest, whether she'd make it to her car before they caught her. But standing there with 50 pairs of eyes on her back and Gu Hyojun's dark gaze burning into her face, all she felt was the cold, clarifying rage she'd been carrying since the day they told her Marcus was dead. This man thought she was nothing. Thought she was disposable. He had no idea what he'd just challenged. "I'll take the fight," she said. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. Someone gasped. Someone else swore. Gu Hyojun's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or the first spark of interest. "You're certain?" he asked. Katie lifted her chin, met his gaze with all the defiance she'd been hiding for 8 weeks. "I'm certain." For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time. His gaze traveled down her face, her neck, her shoulders, cataloging details with an intensity that felt invasive and intimate all at once. Then he smiled. It was a terrible smile, beautiful and cold. "Downstairs," he said. 10 minutes. Don't make me wait." He turned and walked toward the door, the other men parting before him like water. Katie stood alone in the center of the room, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was catching up, her heart slamming against her ribs. She'd done it. She'd gotten his attention. Now she just had to survive what came next. The lower level of the Gilded Pearl wasn't on any official blueprint. Katie had discovered it 3 weeks into her employment, following a lieutenant through a service door that led to a descending staircase instead of the parking garage. She'd memorized the route, marked the cameras, noted the security protocols, but she'd never been inside. The room they led her to was a perversion of elegance. The floors were polished concrete, dark enough to hide bloodstains. The walls were exposed brick, industrial and brutal, but hanging from the ceiling were those same crystal chandeliers, casting soft golden light across the space like a blessing over a slaughterhouse. In the center sat a raised platform. Not a boxing ring, not quite an MMA cage, but something in between. Padded mats, no ropes, surrounded by a low barrier that wouldn't stop anyone from falling but would make climbing out humiliating. Men lined the walls, drinks in hand, money already changing hands as they placed their bets. Katie caught fragments of conversation as she moved through the crowd. She's dead in 30 seconds. Young-ho's going to break her in half. 50,000 on the first minute knockout. No one bet on her. No one even considered it. Vincent appeared at her elbow, his face gray with fear. Katie, you can still apologize. Mr. Gu would accept. I'm not apologizing. You don't understand what you're doing. Young-ho has killed people in this ring. Killed them. This isn't a game. This isn't. I know exactly what this is. She turned to face him, and something in her expression made him step back. Where do I change? He pointed to a side door with a trembling hand. The changing room was small, clinical. Someone had left workout clothes on the bench. Black compression shorts, a sports bra, hand wraps. Katie stripped out of her uniform with mechanical precision, her mind already shifting into the space she hadn't occupied in 5 years. The space where Katie Duncan the waitress didn't exist, where only Katie Duncan the fighter remained. She'd started boxing at 15, following Marcus to the gym after school. He'd wanted to learn self-defense. She'd wanted to hit something. By 17, she was competing. By 19, she'd won the Golden Gloves championship in her weight class. By 21, she'd been scouted for the Olympic training program. Then Marcus got arrested. Their mother got sick. The money disappeared. And Katie's dreams of fighting professionally evaporated like smoke. But muscle memory doesn't forget. Her hands still knew how to wrap themselves. Her body still knew how to move. And the rage had only gotten sharper with time. She stared at herself in the mirror. 5'6", lean and muscled in ways the waitress uniform had hidden. Her dark skin gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her brown eyes were cold. This was who she really was. The door opened. A man stepped inside. Not Vincent. Someone else. Someone with authority in the way he moved. He looked her over with clinical assessment. You can still back out, he said. Mr. Gu doesn't want to waste time if you're going to quit. I won't quit. Young-ho won't hold back just because you're a woman. He's put men in the hospital. Some of them didn't wake up. Katie met his gaze. Then Young-ho should be careful. Something like respect flickered across his face. 3-minute rounds. No time limit. Fight ends when someone can't get up or submits. No weapons. No biting. Everything else is negotiable. He paused. Any questions? Just one. Katie flexed her wrapped hands. Where's my opponent? The man smiled grimly. Already in the ring, the crowd's energy hit her like a physical force when she stepped back into the main room. They'd formed a tight circle around the platform, bodies pressed together, voices rising in anticipation. Katie moved through them, feeling their eyes on her skin, their doubt, their hunger for violence. She climbed onto the platform. Young-ho was waiting. He was massive. 6'4" at least, shoulders like a linebacker, arms thick with muscle and covered in tattoos that twisted up his neck. His face was brutal, scarred, the nose broken and healed wrong more than once. He wore only fight shorts. His bare chest, a canvas of violence, survived. He looked at Katie like she was an insect. She looked at him like he was already bleeding. The crowd fell silent as Gu Hyojun stepped to the edge of the platform. He'd changed shirts, the ruined one replaced by black silk that made him look like an angel of death. His eyes found Katie's across the space. The rules are simple, he announced, his voice carrying easily over the hushed room. 3-minute rounds. No breaks. Fight continues until someone yields or can't continue. He paused, his gaze still locked on Katie. Begin. Young-ho moved first. For a big man, he was fast. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his right hand already cocked back for a haymaker that would have taken Katie's head off her shoulders if it connected. It didn't connect. She slipped inside his guard, her body moving on instinct, and drove her fist into his ribs. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. She felt the impact shudder up her arm, felt the satisfying give of flesh and muscle. Young-ho grunted, grabbed for her. Katie was already gone, dancing back, her footwork clean and precise. The crowd murmured. Someone shouted encouragement to Young-ho. Someone else laughed nervously. Young-ho's expression hardened. He came at her again, this time with more caution, his hands up in a proper guard. He threw a jab, testing her defense. Katie blocked it, countered with a hook to his jaw that snapped his head sideways. The crowd gasped. Young-ho touched his mouth, his fingers coming away bloody. He stared at the blood for a moment, then back at Katie. His eyes had changed. He wasn't looking at an insect anymore. He was looking at a threat. What followed was brutal poetry. Young-ho had weight and power and reach. Every punch he threw carried enough force to break bones. But Katie had speed and precision, and 5 years of rage condensed into every strike. She moved like water, like smoke, always just out of reach until she wanted to be close. And when she got close, she made it hurt. She worked his body systematically. Ribs, solar plexus, liver. Every shot calculated to drain his stamina, to make him slower, to make him sloppy. She ate some hits. A glancing blow to her temple that made stars explode behind her eyes. A body shot that drove the air from her lungs. But she gave back worse. The chandelier light caught the sweat on their skin, turned it gold and crimson where blood mixed with exertion. The sound of leather hitting flesh echoed through the room like a drumbeat. Young-ho's breathing grew labored. Katie's knuckles split inside her wraps. Neither of them stopped. In the second round, Young-ho caught her with a right hand that sent her stumbling. She felt her lips split, tasted copper. The crowd roared. Young-ho pressed his advantage, throwing combinations that forced Katie back toward the edge of the platform. She let him think he was winning, let him commit his weight forward. Then she exploded upward with an uppercut that started at her hips and traveled through her shoulder and snapped Young-ho's head back so hard his mouthguard flew out. He staggered, blinked. Katie didn't give him time to recover. She unleashed everything. Left hook to the temple, right cross to the jaw, another hook to the body. Young-ho's guard crumbled. His legs wobbled. She saw the exact moment his consciousness flickered, that split second where the lights dimmed behind his eyes. Her final combination was textbook perfect. Jab to set up the distance, cross to rotate his chin, hook to turn off the lights. Young-ho collapsed. Not fell. Collapsed. His legs gave out completely, and he dropped to the mat like a puppet with cut strings. His eyes rolled back. His massive body went limp. Silence crashed over the room. Katie stood over him, her chest heaving, her hands trembling with adrenaline, blood dripping from her split knuckles onto the mat. She was a vision of controlled violence, beautiful and terrible and utterly unbreakable. Slowly, she raised her eyes to find Gu Hyojun. He hadn't moved from his position at the edge of the platform, hadn't flinched, hadn't looked away. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were burning with something that made Katie's breath catch. Not anger, fascination, hunger, something darker than desire and more dangerous than respect. He was looking at her like he'd just discovered a new species, like he was already imagining all the ways to possess it. The crowd erupted. Men shouted, some in outrage, some in disbelief. Money changed hands frantically. Someone was screaming about fixed fights. Someone else was calling for a rematch. Gu Hyojun raised one hand. Instant silence. Get him out of here, he said quietly, gesturing to Young-ho's unconscious form. Get medical if he needs it. 2 men scrambled onto the platform, dragging Young-ho away. Katie remained frozen in place, her body still vibrating with adrenaline, her gaze locked on Gu Hyojun's face. He stepped onto the platform, moved toward her with that same predatory grace. The crowd parted automatically, everyone suddenly very interested in looking anywhere but at their boss. When he reached Katie, he stopped so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell his cologne. Something expensive and dark, cedar and smoke. You lied to me, he said softly. Katie's pulse thundered in her ears. You never asked what I was before I started serving drinks. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile on someone less dangerous. You're not a waitress. Tonight I wasn't. He studied her face, his gaze traveling over her split lip, her bruised temple, the blood smeared across her cheek. When he reached up to touch her face, Katie forced herself not to flinch. His thumb brushed the cut on her lip. The touch was gentle. Shockingly gentle for a man who'd just watched her destroy his enforcer. Who are you? He asked. Katie held his gaze. Let him see the truth in her eyes. Not the whole truth. Not yet, but enough to intrigue him. Enough to make him want more. Someone who doesn't apologize, she said. Gu Hyojun's smile widened. Good. I hate apologies. He dropped his hand but didn't step back. Come with me. We need to talk. It wasn't a request. Katie glanced at the crowd, at the men watching with barely concealed hostility, at Vincent hovering near the stairs looking like he might pass out. When she looked back at Gu Hyojun, his expression had hardened into something absolute. They won't touch you, he said, answering the question she hadn't asked. From this moment forward, you're under my protection. Anyone who harms you answers to me. The words hung in the air like a declaration. Like a brand. Katie nodded slowly. Gu Hyojun turned and walked toward the stairs. After a moment, Katie followed, her legs shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, her knuckles throbbing, her entire body starting to register the damage she'd taken. But as she climbed those stairs behind him, moving from the underground arena into the dim corridors of the Gilded Pearl, one thought echoed through her mind. She'd done it. She'd gotten close to Gu Hyojun. Now came the dangerous part. Now came the lies, the manipulation, the careful performance of being exactly what he needed while hiding what she really wanted. Now came the moment she had to decide. Was she hunting him, or was he already hunting her? The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building that didn't officially exist. Katie registered details as they ascended in the private elevator. No buttons on the panel, biometric scanner, security cameras in every corner. The doors opened directly into Gu Hyojun's personal space. She'd expected opulence. What she got was something more complicated. The main room stretched out in shadows and selective light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, Los Angeles glittering like scattered diamonds against black velvet. The furniture was minimal. Dark leather, sharp angles, nothing soft or welcoming. But the art on the walls was masterwork. Original pieces that belonged in museums. A Rothko, a Basquiat, something that might have been a stolen Caravaggio. The contrast was deliberate. Beauty surrounded by darkness, elegance wrapped in threat. Sit. Gu Hyojun gestured to the leather sofa near the windows. I'll get ice. Katie remained standing, her body still on high alert despite the exhaustion creeping through her muscles. She watched him move through the space, disappearing into what she assumed was a kitchen. His movements were fluid, controlled. No wasted motion, no hesitation. When he returned, he carried a first aid kit and a crystal tumbler filled with amber liquid. Drink this first. He handed her the glass. Whiskey. It'll help with the pain. Katie accepted it, but didn't drink immediately. What is this? What is what? This. She gestured at the room, at him, at the surreal situation of sitting in a crime lord's penthouse after beating his enforcer unconscious. You should be furious. You should be making me disappear for humiliating your man. Gu Hyojun settled into the chair across from her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. You think Young-ho was humiliated? I knocked him out in front of your entire organization. You beat him in a fair fight. There's no shame in losing to someone better. He tilted his head, studying her. The shame would have been refusing the challenge. Running away. You didn't run. Katie finally took a sip of the whiskey. It burned down her throat, smooth and expensive. I'm still not sure why you're being reasonable about this. Reasonable? His laugh was soft and dark. Katie. It is Katie, yes? I'm many things, but reasonable isn't one of them. I'm interested. There's a difference. Interested in what? In why a woman with your skills was serving drinks in my restaurant. In what you're really doing here. In why you'd deliberately spill a $50,000 bottle on me just to get my attention. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gaze pinning her in place. You wanted this fight. You engineered it. The question is, why? Katie's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her expression calm. This was the moment, the precipice. She could lie completely, or she could give him enough truth to be believable. My brother, she said quietly. Marcus Duncan. He died in prison 6 months ago. The report said he was dealing secrets to your organization's enemies, that he started a fight and got himself killed. Gu Hyojun's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. I remember that name. He wasn't dirty. He was a graphic designer who made one mistake. He took a freelance job for the wrong client. Someone in your world, and when things went bad, someone made sure he took the fall. Katie set the whiskey down, her hands steady despite the fury building in her chest. I came here to find out who. I came here to make them pay. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the city pulsed with light and life, oblivious to the darkness in this room. So you infiltrated my organization, Gu Hyojun said slowly. Worked here for weeks, learned our patterns, and tonight you forced me to notice you by staging an accident that could have gotten you killed. He smiled, and it was a terrible, beautiful thing. That's either brilliant or suicidal. Maybe both. Definitely both. He stood, retrieving the first aid kit. Let me see your hands. Katie hesitated. I'm not going to hurt you, he said, his voice softer now. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Now give me your hands. She extended them slowly. Her knuckles were split, blood dried around the wounds, bruises already forming. Gu Hyojun knelt in front of her, actually knelt, putting himself at her level, and began unwrapping the hand wraps with surprising gentleness. Your brother was caught in something he didn't understand, he said, his attention focused on cleaning her wounds. The client he worked for was trying to launder money through fake design contracts. When we discovered it, we shut the operation down. Your brother was questioned. Released. We had no interest in an innocent civilian. Katie's breath caught. Then who? Someone wanted him silenced. Someone with access to our records, who could manipulate the narrative. He dabbed antiseptic on her knuckles. Katie hissed at the sting. I didn't order his death, but I can't say the same for everyone in my organization. Do you know who did it? Gu Hyojun was quiet for a long moment, his fingers working carefully to bandage her hands. When he finally looked up, his expression was raw, in a way that made Katie's pulse stutter. I have suspicions, he said, but no proof. And in my world, accusations without proof are just suicide notes. Then help me find proof. He laughed, sharp and bitter. Why would I do that? You just told me you infiltrated my organization with the intent to destroy someone in it. I should have you eliminated as a security risk, but you won't. No. His thumb traced the edge of her bandaged palm. I won't. Do you know why? Katie shook her head, not trusting her voice. Because I need someone exactly like you. He stood, creating distance between them, and walked to the windows. His silhouette was sharp against the city lights. I'm trapped, Katie. I've been trapped since I was 22 years old, and every year the chains get tighter. I don't understand. He turned to face her. My mother, Madame Park. She runs the JBL. I'm just her puppet, her attack dog, her pretty face for the Americans, and she keeps me on a very short leash. The name sent ice through Katie's veins. Madame Park. Even she'd heard whispers about the woman. Rumors of ruthlessness that made her son look merciful by comparison. She controls me through blackmail, Gu Hyojun continued, his voice flat, emotionless. Medical records. Documents with my signature. Evidence that I euthanized my own father when he was dying of cancer. Katie's breath stopped. He was suffering, Gu Hyojun said, and for the first time she heard real pain in his voice. Months of agony, begging to die. And the doctors wouldn't help. So I did. I gave him morphine, held his hand, and let him go peacefully. My mother was there. She watched. And then she had every moment documented. She blackmailed you with mercy. She blackmailed me with murder. In our world, family killing family is the ultimate taboo. It doesn't matter that he wanted to die. It doesn't matter that I was helping him. If that evidence surfaces, every family in the JBL would demand my death. He met Katie's gaze. So I do everything she says. Run her operations, clean up her messes, smile and nod and pretend I'm the one in control. Katie's mind raced. This wasn't what she'd expected. She'd come here looking for a monster, and instead she'd found… What? A prisoner? A man capable of tenderness and violence in equal measure? Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because I watched you fight tonight. I watched you refuse to submit, refuse to break, even when you were outweighed and outmatched. You're not afraid of consequences. You're not afraid of me." He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the dim space. "And I think you're exactly reckless enough to help me." "Help you do what?" "Destroy my mother. Find the blackmail, destroy it, and free me from her control." His smile was sharp as broken glass. "In exchange, I'll give you access to every record in the JBL. Every name, every operation, every secret. We'll find who framed your brother together, and then I'll let you have them." The offer hung in the air between them, dangerous and seductive. Katie should have said no, should have recognized this for the trap it could be. But staring into Gu Hyojun's eyes, seeing the desperate fury hidden behind his controlled mask, she realized something. They were the same. Both trapped by the past. Both willing to burn the world to escape it. "I have conditions," she said. "Name them. I want proof. Show me these medical records exist. Show me you're telling the truth." "Done. What else?" "If we do this, if we take down Madam Park, you don't touch my brother's killer. That one's mine." Gu Hyojun's smile widened. "I wouldn't dream of denying you that pleasure. Anything else?" Katie stood, closing the distance between them until she could feel the heat of his body, smell the cedar and smoke of his cologne mixed with the copper tang of her own blood. "If you betray me," she said softly, "I'll kill you. I don't care about your empire or your mother or your blackmail. I'll put you in the ground." He laughed, actually laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "There it is. That's what I saw in the ring. That's what I need." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Katie stared at his offered hand. This was insane. Allying with the head of the organization that had destroyed her brother. Trusting a man who killed for a living, walking deeper into the darkness instead of escaping it. But she'd stopped believing in escape the day Marcus died. Now she only believed in vengeance. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, his fingers closing around hers like a promise and a threat. They stood like that for a long moment, two damaged people recognizing something broken in each other. "I'll show you the records tomorrow," Gu Hyojun said. "Tonight you should rest. There's a guest room down the hall. You're safe here." "I'm never safe. Neither am I." He released her hand slowly. "But for tonight, we can pretend." Katie walked toward the hallway he'd indicated, her body finally acknowledging the exhaustion and pain. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. Gu Hyojun stood silhouetted against the windows, a dark figure surrounded by light, beautiful and terrible and utterly alone. "Why did you really tell me all this?" she asked. "You could have just made me disappear. You didn't need to offer me anything." He turned, and the look in his eyes made something in Katie's chest tighten. "Because the moment you chose to fight instead of submit," he said quietly, "I knew you were the only person in this city who might understand what it's like to be trapped in your own skin, to be forced to become something you hate." He paused. "And I'm tired of being alone with it." The honesty in those words hit Katie harder than any punch she'd taken tonight. She nodded once, then disappeared into the guest room before he could see the tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Behind the closed door, she collapsed onto the bed, her bandaged hands shaking. She'd come here for revenge, for justice, for Marcus. But now she'd stumbled into something more complicated. An alliance with a monster who might not be a monster after all. A man who wore his darkness openly, while she was still pretending hers didn't exist. Katie closed her eyes and saw her brother's face. Remembered his laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he'd always believed in her even when she'd stopped believing in herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the memory. "I'm sorry I'm not doing this the right way. I'm sorry I'm making deals with devils, but I promise I'll find who killed you, and I'll make them pay." Outside her door, the penthouse was silent, but in that silence, something new had been born. An alliance forged in blood and desperation, a partnership that would either save them both or destroy everything, and neither of them had any idea which one it would be. Morning came wrapped in gray light. Katie woke disoriented, her body one massive bruise, her mind taking several seconds to remember where she was. The guest room was Spartanly elegant. White sheets, dark furniture, a single piece of art on the wall that looked like violence rendered in watercolor. She showered carefully, wincing as hot water found every cut and bruise. When she emerged, she found fresh clothes laid out on the bed, black jeans, a silk blouse the color of deep wine. They fit perfectly, which should have been unsettling but somehow wasn't. Gu Hyojun was in the kitchen when she found him. He'd changed into casual clothes, dark slacks, and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked different in daylight, softer somehow, though the danger was still there beneath the surface. "Coffee?" he asked without looking up from whatever he was reading on his tablet. "Please." He poured her a cup. Black, no sugar, which she hadn't told him was how she took it. Another small invasion of privacy that should have bothered her more than it did. "Sleep well?" he asked. "I've had worse nights." Katie accepted the coffee, taking a seat at the kitchen island. "You?" "I don't sleep much anymore. Old habit." He finally looked at her, his gaze traveling over her face with clinical assessment. "How do you feel?" "Like I went 3 rounds with a freight train." His lips curved. "Yong-ho will be pleased to hear that." He regained consciousness around 4 a.m., by the way. First thing he asked was whether you were real, or if he'd hallucinated the whole thing. "What did you tell him?" "That he'd lost to someone better. And if he wanted a rematch, he'd have to earn it." Gu Hyojun set down his tablet. He respected that. "You'll have his loyalty now, which is worth more than you know." Katie wasn't sure how to process that, so she focused on her coffee instead. The silence between them was oddly comfortable. "I have something for you," Gu Hyojun said after a moment. He stood and retrieved a thin folder from a drawer. "The medical records, the blackmail, everything you asked to see." Katie's hands trembled slightly as she opened the folder. The documents inside were devastating in their clinical precision. Hospital records from Seoul National University Hospital. Morphine dosage charts signed by Gu Hyojun. A death certificate listing time of death, cause, and attending family. Photographs. God, there were photographs. Of Gu Hyojun sitting beside his father's bed, holding the old man's hand. The images had been taken from a concealed angle. His face was visible, raw with grief. His father's face was peaceful. The IV line was clear. "She had cameras installed," Gu Hyojun said quietly. "I didn't know until afterward. She confronted me at the funeral with copies." Katie stared at a photo of him wiping tears from his cheeks, and something in her chest cracked. "This is monstrous. This is my mother." He took the folder back gently. "She sees sentimentality as weakness, love as a vulnerability to exploit. She spent my entire life teaching me that caring about anyone is the same as handing them a loaded gun. And yet you told me all of this. Showed me your weakness. Maybe I'm tired of being what she made me." He locked the folder in a safe embedded in the wall. "Or maybe I'm just curious to see if you'll use it against me." Katie met his gaze. "I won't." "Why not?" "Because I know what it's like to love someone the world thinks you shouldn't." She thought of Marcus, of the way people had looked at her after his arrest, like his sins had stained her by proximity. "And I know what it's like to have that love used as a weapon." Something shifted in Gu Hyojun's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or the beginning of trust. "There's someone I want you to meet," he said. "He'll help us with the next phase." The man who arrived an hour later was not what Katie expected. He was white, early 40s, with the kind of expensive casual style that screamed old money. His smile was warm and genuine when Gu Hyojun introduced him. "Katie, this is Elias Thorne, my legal consultant and one of the few people in this organization I actually trust." Elias extended his hand. His grip was firm, professional. "It's a pleasure. I've heard remarkable things about last night's bout. Yong-ho is something of a legend, and from what I understand, you made quite the impression." Katie shook his hand, automatically cataloging details. Expensive watch, manicured nails, a slight tan line on his ring finger. Married, or recently divorced. His eyes were kind, but there was an intelligence behind them that suggested he didn't miss much. "Elias handles the legitimate side of our operations," Gu Hyojun explained. "Real estate, investments, the fronts that keep us clean in public. More importantly, he knows how my mother structures her security, where she keeps her most sensitive documents, including the blackmail material," Elias added. "Though I should warn you, getting access to it won't be simple. Madam Park keeps her most valuable assets in a private vault at her estate. The security is formidable." Katie leaned forward. "What kind of security?" "Biometric scanners, armed guards. A digital system I designed myself, ironically enough." Elias pulled out his tablet, bringing up schematics. "There are exactly 3 people with access. Madam Park herself, her head of security, and me." "Can you get us in?" Katie asked. "I can get us past the digital security. The guards and the biometrics are your problem. He glanced at Gu Hyojun. This is extraordinarily dangerous. If she suspects what we're doing, she won't suspect, Gu Hyojun said, because we're going to give her exactly what she wants, which is, his smile was cold, a reason to host one of her legendary parties, an event important enough that she'll want me there as window dressing, an event that will require her full attention while we move against her. Understanding dawned on Katie. You're going to stage a distraction. We're going to stage a performance. Something big enough, public enough, that she can't resist using it to demonstrate her power. Gu Hyojun's gaze was sharp, and while she's busy playing queen, we'll be robbing her castle. Elias nodded slowly. It could work. Her birthday is in 3 weeks. She always hosts an extravagant celebration. Diplomats, judges, anyone she's bought or blackmailed. Security will be heavy, but the chaos of the party itself will provide cover. 3 weeks, Katie repeated. That's not much time, which means we start now. Gu Hyojun stood. Elias, I need you to reach out to your contacts. See if anyone's heard whispers about Katie's brother, who might have wanted him silenced, who had the access to arrange it. Quietly. Of course. Elias gathered his materials. Katie, it was lovely to meet you. I look forward to working together. After he left, Katie found herself alone with Gu Hyojun again. The penthouse felt smaller now, more intimate. You trust him? She asked. As much as I trust anyone. He's been with me for 5 years. Never given me a reason to doubt him. Gu Hyojun moved to the windows, staring out at the daylight city. Why? Do you sense something? Katie frowned. She couldn't articulate it exactly. Just a feeling. A slight discomfort in the way Elias's eyes had lingered on Gu Hyojun when he thought no one was watching. Possessive, almost. But that could be loyalty, or paranoia on her part. No, she said finally. Just being careful. Good. Paranoia keeps you alive in this world. He turned back to her. Come here. Let me check your hands. Katie crossed to him, extending her bandaged palms. He unwrapped them carefully, his fingers gentle as they examined the healing cuts. The intimacy of the gesture made her pulse quicken. They're healing well, he said softly. You'll have scars, but they'll fade. I don't mind scars. No, I don't imagine you do. His thumb traced the edge of one cut, the touch sending electricity up her arm. You're not afraid of pain. That's rare. Pain is just information. It tells you you're still alive. Gu Hyojun's eyes lifted to hers, and the intensity in them stole her breath. You're remarkable. Do you know that? Katie's heart hammered. They were standing too close, the space between them charged with something dangerous. She should step back, create distance, but she didn't. I'm just someone who refuses to stay down, she whispered. No. His hand moved to her face, cupping her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. You're someone who turns pain into power, who takes what should break you and makes it into a weapon. He stopped, swallowed. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. I'm what? Katie asked, her voice barely audible. Mine, he said. Or you could be, if you wanted. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. This wasn't just an alliance anymore. This was something else, something darker and more complicated. Katie knew she should say no, should maintain professional distance. But standing there with his hand on her face and his eyes burning into hers, she realized the truth. She'd stopped seeing him as just a target the moment he'd knelt in front of her to bandage her wounds. Stopped seeing him as just a monster when he'd shown her the photos of his grief. He was a man, trapped and desperate and dangerous. Just like her. I want, she whispered. Gu Hyojun's control shattered. He kissed her like he'd been starving for it, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His mouth was demanding, fierce, tasting of coffee and something darker. Katie responded in kind, her bandaged hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They collided. All heat and desperate need, and months of isolation, finally finding release. He lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist, her back against the cool glass of the window. The city stretched out behind them, oblivious to the fire burning in this penthouse. His hands moved under her blouse, mapping skin with possessive reverence. Katie arched into his touch, her breath coming in gasps, every nerve ending alive with sensation. This was reckless, dangerous, everything she'd told herself not to do. She didn't care. His mouth moved to her neck, teeth scraping sensitive skin. Katie's head fell back, a soft sound escaping her lips. She felt his smile against her throat. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, "and I will." "Don't stop," she breathed. "Don't you dare stop." He carried her away from the window, through the penthouse, to his bedroom, darker than the rest of the space, all shadows and silk sheets. He laid her down like she was precious, then covered her body with his. What followed was a claiming, a surrender. Two broken people finding solace in each other's darkness, their bodies speaking truths their mouths couldn't form. Katie lost herself in sensation. The slide of skin on skin, the taste of him, the way he whispered her name like a prayer and a curse. Every touch was intense, deliberate, designed to unmake her. And she let it. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets damp with sweat, their breathing slowly returning to normal. Gu Hyojun's fingers traced idle patterns on her shoulder. Katie's head rested on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "This complicates things," he said quietly. "Everything about this is already complicated." "True." His arm tightened around her. "But Katie, this isn't just strategy for me. This isn't just convenience." She lifted her head to look at him. "What is it then?" "I don't know yet." His expression was raw, vulnerable. "But I know I don't want to let you go. And in my world, that's dangerous. People I care about become targets, leverage. They get hurt or killed to control me." Katie thought of Marcus, of how love had been her greatest weakness and her greatest strength. "Then we protect each other, make ourselves too dangerous to touch." "You say that like it's simple." "It's not simple, but it's possible." She pressed her palm over his heart. "We take down your mother. We find my brother's killer. And then we decide what comes next." Gu Hyojun caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. The kiss he pressed to her knuckles was tender, at odds with the violence she knew he was capable of. 3 weeks, he said. "We have 3 weeks to prepare, to plan, to become strong enough to survive what's coming. Then we'd better not waste time." His smile was sharp and beautiful. "No, we'd better not." They stayed like that as daylight faded into evening. Two people balanced on the edge of something that would either save them or destroy them completely. Neither of them knew which. But in that moment, wrapped in shadows and silk, they didn't care. 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and proximity. Katie moved into the penthouse officially, her old apartment abandoned like the life she'd left behind. During the day, she trained, rebuilding the stamina she'd let slip, working with Yong-ho, who'd become an unlikely ally. At night, she and Gu Hyojun planned, their strategies punctuated by stolen moments of intimacy that grew more intense with each passing day. They were becoming dangerous together. Elias proved invaluable, providing intel on Madame Park's security systems, her routines, her weaknesses. He seemed genuinely invested in their success, though Katie occasionally caught him watching Gu Hyojun with an expression she couldn't quite read. Now, the night of the heist had arrived. Madame Park's estate sprawled across a hillside in Pacific Palisades, a monument to wealth and power disguised as a home. The party was already in full swing when Katie arrived on Gu Hyojun's arm, dressed in midnight blue silk that transformed her into someone who belonged in this world of casual cruelty and expensive taste. "Breathe," Gu Hyojun murmured as they entered. "You look perfect." Katie forced her shoulders to relax. Around them, Los Angeles's elite mingled, politicians whose campaigns Madame Park had funded, judges who owed her favors, criminals who'd been legitimized by her money. The air smelled of champagne and corruption. Madame Park herself held court in the center of the ballroom. She was smaller than Katie expected, elegant in a way that made her seem fragile until you saw her eyes. Those eyes were black ice, calculating, merciless, ancient beyond her years. "Hyojun," her voice carried across the room. "Come, introduce me to your new acquisition." Katie felt Gu Hyojun's hand tighten on her waist, a warning and a comfort simultaneously. They approached together. "Mother, happy birthday." He kissed her cheek with practiced affection. "This is Katie Duncan. Katie, my mother, Madame Park." Katie extended her hand, meeting the older woman's gaze without flinching. "It's an honor." Madame Park's handshake was brief, her assessment brutal. Katie felt herself being weighed, measured, categorized. When the older woman released her hand, She smiled, but it was the smile of a predator who'd just decided not to strike. Yet, the fighter, Madam Park said. Yes, I heard about that. You embarrassed Young-ho quite thoroughly. Her gaze shifted to Gu Hyojun. I assume there's a reason you've brought her into our world? She's useful, Gu Hyojun said smoothly. Skilled, loyal, everything you taught me to value. The wordplay was subtle, praising his mother while reminding her of the lessons she'd used to shape him. Madam Park's smile widened. How pragmatic. Your father would have disapproved. He always was too sentimental. But I suppose I raised you better than that. She turned her attention back to Katie. Enjoy the party, Miss Duncan. And do try not to break anyone tonight. These guests are expensive to replace. They were dismissed. Katie followed Gu Hyojun through the crowd, her heart hammering. She knows something. She always knows something. But she doesn't know everything. Not yet. He guided her toward a side corridor, his hand steady on her back. Elias will create the distraction in 15 minutes. That's our window. The vault was located in the estate's west wing, disguised as a wine cellar. Katie and Gu Hyojun moved through the shadows, avoiding security cameras Elias had supposedly disabled. The door required both a code and a biometric scan. Gu Hyojun provided the code. The scanner read his palm. The vault opened with a whisper of hydraulics. Inside was a cathedral of secrets. Filing cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with years and names. Digital servers hummed in temperature-controlled cases, and in the center, protected by glass, the physical documents Madam Park deemed most valuable. There. Gu Hyojun pointed to a file marked with his father's name. That's what we came for. But Katie's attention had been caught by something else. A file with her brother's name. Her hands trembled as she pulled it from the shelf. Katie, we don't have time. I have to know. She opened the file. The first document was a police report from the night Marcus was arrested. Standard charges, normal procedure. But underneath were communications, emails between members of the JBL's financial division and someone with the LAPD, arrangements for evidence to be planted, money changing hands. Her brother had been guilty of the original crime, taking the design job, unknowingly participating in money laundering. But he'd also been cooperating with federal investigators, trying to make it right. Someone had found out. Someone had decided he was too dangerous to live. Katie's vision blurred as she read the final document. An order for Marcus's death, sanctioned by someone with the authority to make prisoners disappear. The signature at the bottom made her blood run cold. Not Madam Park's, not Gu Hyojun's. Elias Thorne's. No, she whispered. No, that's not. The vault door slammed shut. Katie and Gu Hyojun spun toward the sound. Through the reinforced glass, they could see Elias standing in the corridor, his expression apologetic but resolute. I'm sorry, he said, his voice coming through an intercom. I truly am. But you've become too dangerous, Hyojun. And Katie, well, you should have stayed in your place. Gu Hyojun moved to the door, slamming his palm against the glass. Elias, don't do this. We can talk. We can. We're past talking. Elias's smile was sad. I've spent 5 years trying to guide you, trying to shape you into what the organization needs. But you keep clinging to these pointless sentiments. Your father's death should have freed you. Instead, you let his ghost control you. You worked for my mother, Gu Hyojun said, realization dawning on his face. This whole time, you were her spy. I work for the JBL. Sometimes that means working with your mother. Sometimes it means working around her. Elias adjusted his cufflinks casually. Madam Park wanted you controlled through guilt. I suggested something more permanent. And now, thanks to Katie's investigation, I have the perfect opportunity. Katie clutched her brother's file, rage burning through her shock. You killed him. You murdered my brother to protect yourself. I eliminated a security risk who was cooperating with federal agents. Your brother knew too much about our financial structures. I couldn't allow that information to spread. Elias's expression hardened, just like I can't allow either of you to leave this vault alive. The explosion will be tragic. A gas leak during the party. You'll be found together, dead in a lover's embrace while trying to steal from Madam Park. How poetic. He turned to leave. Wait. Gu Hyojun's voice was desperate. Elias, please. If you ever cared about me at all. I did care. Elias looked back, and for a moment his mask slipped, revealing something raw and complicated beneath. I still do. That's why this hurts. But you left me no choice. Then he was gone. Katie and Gu Hyojun stared at each other in the sudden silence. The vault was sealed. The air recycling system had been shut off. She could already feel the atmosphere growing stale. He's going to kill everyone at the party, Katie said. A gas explosion would take out the whole wing. No. Gu Hyojun pulled out his phone. No signal. The vault blocked everything. He moved to the servers, his fingers flying over keyboards. There has to be an emergency override. A way to… Katie grabbed his shoulder. Stop. We don't have time to stop. If we don't… Look at me. She turned him to face her. His eyes were wild with panic, with the same helpless terror he must have felt watching his father die. We're not going to panic. We're going to think. What are we standing in right now? He blinked, understanding slowly dawning. The blackmail archive. Your mother's leverage over every powerful person in Los Angeles. Every dirty secret, every crime, every weakness. Katie moved to the filing cabinets. If this explodes, all of it is gone. She loses her power. But Elias said. Elias lied. He's not going to blow up the vault. He's going to blow up the party, frame us for attempted theft, and take this information for himself. Katie pulled drawers open, scanning contents. Which means the emergency exit is still active. We just need to find it. They worked together, searching frantically. Every vault had a failsafe. Even Madame Park wouldn't trap herself in her own archive. Behind a panel labeled Fire Suppression, they found it. A manual override that would unlock the door from inside. Gu Hyojun pulled the lever. The vault door hissed open. They ran. The explosion came as they reached the main corridor. Not in the vault. In the ballroom. Exactly as Katie had predicted. The sound was massive, concussive, followed immediately by screams. They burst back into the estate's public areas to find chaos. Flames licked up one wall. Guests stumbled toward exits, some injured, all terrified. Security was mobilizing, trying to contain the damage. And standing near the main entrance, watching the pandemonium with cold satisfaction, was Elias Thorne. Katie didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't plan. She just moved. She crossed the room in seconds, her body remembering every hour of training, every fight, every moment of rage she'd been carrying since Marcus died. Elias turned toward her, surprise flashing across his face. Too late. Katie's first punch broke his nose. Her second drove into his solar plexus, doubling him over. The third was an uppercut that sent him sprawling backward onto the marble floor. You killed him, she said, her voice barely human. You killed my brother and you framed him. And you made me think. She couldn't finish. The words were choked by fury too large for language. Elias spit blood, trying to rise. He was weak. Just like Hyojun is weak. Just like… Katie kicked him in the ribs. Heard something crack. Didn't care. Katie. Gu Hyojun's voice cut through her rage. Katie, stop. We need him alive. Why? She rounded on him, tears streaming down her face. Why should he live when Marcus didn't? When he was going to murder you? Because my mother needs to see what he's done. Because we need his testimony to bring down everyone he was working with. Gu Hyojun moved to her side, his hand gentle on her shoulder. Because killing him quickly would be mercy, and he doesn't deserve mercy. Katie looked down at Elias. He was conscious, barely, his expensive suit ruined, his carefully constructed facade shattered. She thought of Marcus, of how he'd died alone and afraid, betrayed by people he'd tried to help. You're right, she said softly. Death would be mercy. She stepped back, letting Gu Hyojun's security guards surround Elias. They hauled him to his feet roughly. Around them, the fire was being contained. Madame Park emerged from the smoke, her expression furious as she surveyed the damage. When her eyes found Gu Hyojun and Katie, they narrowed with understanding. Explain, she demanded. Gu Hyojun handed her the files they'd retrieved from the vault, his father's documents, the blackmail, and most damning, Elias's communications, his orders, his betrayal. Madame Park read in silence. When she finished, she looked at Elias with an expression that made Katie's blood run cold. This wasn't anger, it was calculation. You tried to steal from me, Madame Park said quietly. Not money, not drugs. Something more valuable. Information. Control. Power. She stepped closer to Elias. And you used my son's weakness to do it. He is weak, Elias spat. He cares too much, feels too much. He's not fit to. Madam Park slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the damaged ballroom. My son is exactly what I made him to be, she said. Ruthless when necessary, controlled when beneficial, and loyal. Painfully, stupidly loyal. To me. She glanced at Gu Hyojun. Though perhaps I owe you an apology for testing that loyalty so harshly. Gu Hyojun stared at his mother. You're releasing me? Don't be dramatic. I'm acknowledging that my methods may have been counterproductive. The blackmail is yours. Do with it what you will. She turned her attention back to Elias. As for you, you've betrayed the JBL. There's only one punishment for that. She didn't need to elaborate. Everyone in the room knew what happened to traitors. Katie watched as they dragged Elias away. She should have felt satisfaction, victory, justice. Instead, she felt empty. Marcus was gone. Knowing who killed him didn't change that. Watching his murderer face punishment didn't bring him back. Gu Hyojun's hand found hers, squeezing gently. Let's go home, he said quietly. Katie nodded, unable to speak. They left Madam Park's estate as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. The city stretched out below them, beautiful and brutal and utterly indifferent to the darkness they'd survived. In the car, Gu Hyojun held her while she finally broke down, sobs racking her body, grief and rage and exhaustion pouring out in waves. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm sorry, I should be stronger. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he said fiercely. But even the strong need to break sometimes. I've got you. I'm not letting go. Katie clung to him. This man who was supposed to be her enemy, who'd become something infinitely more complicated. They'd survived the night, destroyed the blackmail, exposed the traitor. But the cost had been pieces of themselves they'd never get back. And as the city woke around them, Katie realized something terrible. She didn't just want revenge anymore. She wanted the throne. She wanted power enough that no one could ever hurt her again. Control enough that she'd never be helpless. The kind of ruthless authority that turned her into exactly what this world required. And Gu Hyojun, reading her expression in the dim morning light, smiled like he understood. Like he'd been waiting for her to reach that conclusion all along. 3 weeks ago you were serving drinks, he said softly. Now you're standing beside me, covered in blood, ready to burn the world. Do you know what that makes you? Katie met his gaze. Tell me. Mine, he said. And something more. Something this city has never seen before. What? His smile widened, dark and beautiful, and absolutely certain. A queen, he said. The queen of the Shadow Clan. And in that moment, watching the sun rise over a city that had taken everything from her, Katie Duncan made her choice. She wasn't going to destroy the JBL from within. She was going to rule it. The penthouse had become their war room. Maps covered the dining table. Surveillance photos lined the walls. For 2 weeks, Katie and Gu Hyojun had dissected every transaction, every name, every thread in the JBL's web. And now, finally, Katie had found the spider. She stood at the window as dawn broke, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Behind her, Gu Hyojun slept. One of the few times she'd seen him truly rest. The man who'd seemed invincible that first night now curled toward her side of the bed, seeking her warmth even in sleep. It terrified her how much she cared. The file lay open on her lap. Elias Thorne's communications, carefully hidden in encrypted folders. Transaction records showing payments to prison guards. An order, clinical and cold, for Marcus Duncan's elimination. Her hands shook as she read his justification. Asterisk. Subject cooperating with federal investigation. Possesses detailed knowledge of financial structures. Termination necessary to preserve operational security. Asterisk. Marcus hadn't been dirty. He'd been trying to fix his mistake, and Elias had murdered him for it. You found something. Gu Hyojun's voice was rough with sleep. He'd woken silently, the way predators do. Katie didn't turn. Your trusted advisor killed my brother. The words hung in the still air. She heard him rise, felt the bed shift, then his presence behind her. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm and grounding. Show me. She handed him the file. Watched his reflection in the window as he read, saw his expression harden into something lethal. He's been with me for 5 years, Gu Hyojun said quietly. Helped me rebuild after my father died. I trusted him with everything. He used that trust, Katie finally turned to face him. The morning light caught the sharp planes of his face, the dangerous beauty that had first drawn her attention. He's been reporting to your mother all along. Every move you made, every weakness you showed, she knew because of him. Gu Hyojun's jaw tightened. Then we use him the same way. Feed him false information about our plans for Madame Park. Let him think he's still trusted. And when the moment comes, his smile was cold as winter. Then I'll let you have him. Your brother, your vengeance. Katie stood, closing the distance between them. She pressed her palm to his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her hand. After we deal with your mother, that comes first. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She met his gaze. Because if we don't free you from her control, we'll never be safe. She'll always have that leverage, always have the power to destroy you. To destroy us, he corrected softly. His hand covered hers. You're part of this now. Part of me. She knows that. The weight of those words settled over Katie like a brand. She should have been afraid. Binding herself to a man like Gu Hyojun meant accepting the darkness that came with him. But staring into his eyes, seeing the raw need there, she felt only certainty. Then we burn her world down, Katie said. Together. The next 2 weeks were a performance worthy of an Oscar. Katie and Gu Hyojun played their parts perfectly. The crime lord and his deadly lover, preparing to overthrow a queen. They fed Elias carefully crafted lies, made him believe they planned to confront Madame Park at her annual charity gala, a public event where she'd be surrounded by witnesses and security. They showed him fake blueprints, discussed fictional escape routes, let him think he knew every detail. Meanwhile, their real plan took shape in whispers and stolen moments. Madame Park's true vulnerability wasn't at public events. It was in her private sanctuary, the estate in Pacific Palisades, where she kept her most precious assets. The blackmail archives, the financial records, the proof of every crime and betrayal she'd orchestrated over 30 years. She goes there every Sunday, Gu Hyojun explained, spreading reconnaissance photos across the table. Alone except for 2 guards, she reviews her files, makes her plans. It's the only time she's truly vulnerable. Katie studied the images. The estate was beautiful. Rolling grounds, classical architecture, gardens that belonged in magazines. It looked nothing like a fortress. That was the point. Security, cameras on the perimeter, motion sensors in the gardens. The guards are competent but not paranoid. They're protecting a woman in her own home, not a target. Gu Hyojun's finger traced the building's layout. The vault is here, in the east wing. Biometric lock requiring her palm print and a rotating code. Which you have. His smile was grim. Which I memorized years ago, watching over her shoulder like the dutiful son. She never knew I was preparing for this. Katie leaned closer, studying the approach vectors. Her arm brushed his, and even that casual contact sent electricity through her. 2 weeks of proximity had only intensified the pull between them. Every glance was weighted, every touch deliberate. We go in Saturday night, she said. Late, when she's asleep. We have maybe an hour before the guards do their rounds. And if something goes wrong, Katie met his gaze. Then we improvise. Like we did at the Gilded Pearl. Gu Hyojun's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I won't let her hurt you. I won't let her hurt you either. Katie squeezed his hand. That's the deal, remember? We protect each other. The moment stretched between them, intimate despite the war they were planning. Then Gu Hyojun pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that tasted of desperation and determination. Katie responded with equal intensity, her fingers fisting in his shirt, anchoring herself to this man who'd become her entire world in the span of weeks. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Gu Hyojun rested his forehead against hers. After this is over, he said quietly. After we're free. What do you want? Katie closed her eyes. What did she want? Justice for Marcus was still there, a burning coal in her chest. But now there was something else. Something darker and more complicated. The truth? She whispered. I want power. Real power. The kind that means no one can ever hurt us again. The kind that makes people afraid to even think about betraying us. She expected judgment. Horror, maybe. Instead, Gu Hyojun smiled against her lips. Then that's what we'll build, he promised. A kingdom of shadows, and you'll be its queen. Saturday night arrived wrapped in fog. Katie dressed in black tactical gear, her hair pulled back tight, weapons concealed beneath her clothes. In the mirror, she looked like what she'd become, a predator in human skin. Gu Hyojun appeared behind her, also dressed for war. He pressed something cold into her palm. A knife, the blade etched with Korean characters. "It was my father's," he said. "He carried it through 3 wars and never drew it in anger. He gave it to me before he died and told me to only use it for something worth dying for." Katie turned the weapon over, feeling the weight of history in the steel. "I can't take this. You already have." His hands settled on her shoulders. "You're going into danger for me. That makes it yours." Their eyes met in the mirror. Katie saw the trust there, the absolute faith that she wouldn't fail him. It should have been pressure. Instead, it felt like wings. She tucked the knife into her boot. They drove to Pacific Palisades in silence, the city lights giving way to the manicured darkness of wealth. Madam Park's estate sat behind walls designed to look decorative but would stop anything short of a tank. Gu Hyojun killed the engine 2 blocks away. "Security shifts at 11. We have a 30-minute window when the new guards are still settling in." Katie checked her watch. 10:55. "Let's move." They approached through the gardens, staying low, avoiding the camera sightlines Gu Hyojun had memorized. The fog helped, turning the world into gray shapes and muffled sounds. Katie's heart hammered, but her hands were steady. This was it. The moment everything changed. The East Wing entrance was locked but not alarmed. Arrogance or oversight? Katie didn't care. Gu Hyojun picked it with practiced ease, and they slipped inside. The interior was exactly as cold as Katie expected. Marble floors, dark wood, art worth more than most people would see in a lifetime of paychecks. It was beautiful in the way mausoleums are beautiful, preserved and lifeless. They moved through corridors lit only by emergency lighting, their footsteps silent on expensive rugs. The vault door appeared exactly where the blueprints promised. Reinforced steel disguised as decorative paneling. Gu Hyojun placed his palm on the scanner. Entered the code. The lock disengaged with a whisper. Inside was a monument to manipulation. Filing cabinets stretched from floor to ceiling, each labeled with names Katie recognized from news reports and wanted posters. The blackmail that had built an empire, carefully organized and preserved. And there, in a climate-controlled case, the medical records. Photographs of Gu Hyojun with his dying father, the morphine dosage charts, the death certificate with his signature. Katie watched his face as he stared at the evidence that had controlled him for years. Saw the pain there, fresh as the day it happened. "Burn it," she said softly. "Burn all of it." Gu Hyojun reached for the case, then froze. "Wait. What?" He moved to a different cabinet, pulling files rapidly. His expression shifted from focused to horrified. "These aren't just blackmail records," he said. "These are transaction logs, payments to judges, politicians, federal agents." He looked up, his face pale. "Katie, your brother's case? The prosecutor who denied his cooperation deal was on my mother's payroll. The judge who set his bail too high. The guards who looked away during the attack. She coordinated all of it." Katie's vision narrowed. Why? Marcus was nobody. Why would she care? Because Elias told her to. Gu Hyojun held up another file. "He convinced her that federal investigators were using your brother as bait. That eliminating him would send a message to anyone else thinking about cooperation. She signed off on the operation, but Elias handled the details." The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Elias hadn't just killed Marcus. He'd manipulated Madam Park into authorizing it, used her infrastructure, made her complicit. "He played you both," Katie breathed. "Made you think you were enemies when you were just his pawns. And now he's outside waiting for us to finish." Gu Hyojun moved to the vault entrance, listening. "I can hear voices." More than the usual guard complement. Katie joined him. Through the crack in the door, she could see shapes moving in the corridor. Not guards in uniform. Men in tactical gear. "A trap. He knew we'd come here," Katie said. "He let us think we were so clever, mapping her schedule, finding her weakness. But he was guiding us the whole time." Gu Hyojun's expression hardened into something murderous. "Then we give him what he wants. Let him think he's won. And then?" His smile was terrifying. "Then we show him what happens when you betray a monster who's learned to love." They emerged from the vault with hands raised, files tucked under their arms. The tactical team surrounded them immediately. 6 men with enough firepower to start a war. And standing at the end of the corridor, wearing a tailored suit and an expression of deep regret, was Elias Thorne. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said, his voice carrying that same gentle disappointment he'd used when discussing disappointing quarterly reports. "I truly hoped you'd see reason, Hyojun. Hoped you'd accept your role gracefully. My role as your puppet?" Gu Hyojun's voice was cold. "As your path to power? As the face of an organization that needs to evolve?" Elias stepped closer, flanked by armed men. "Your mother built something magnificent through fear and blackmail. But the world is changing. We need legitimacy now. Respectability. And you're too damaged, too sentimental to provide that. So you killed an innocent man to protect your vision?" Katie's voice cracked like a whip. "You murdered my brother because he threatened your precious legitimacy?" Elias finally looked at her, and Katie saw something she hadn't noticed before. Contempt. He'd always seen her as a distraction, a weakness Gu Hyojun would outgrow. "Your brother was collateral damage," Elias said. "Nothing personal." Katie laughed, the sound sharp and broken. "Nothing personal. You destroyed my family and you call it nothing personal. I did what was necessary for the organization's survival, just as I'm doing now." Elias gestured to his men. "Take them to the old processing plant. Make it quick. Make it clean, and make absolutely certain no one finds the bodies." The tactical team moved forward. Katie tensed, calculating distances, weighing odds. 6 armed men against 2 people who'd come expecting a heist, not a firefight. Then Gu Hyojun smiled. It was the most dangerous thing Katie had ever seen. "You made one mistake, Elias," he said softly. "You assumed I came here without insurance." He pressed something on his watch. The lights died. Emergency power failed. Even the exit signs went dark, plunging the corridor into absolute blackness. And in that darkness, Katie heard Gu Hyojun whisper, "Run." She didn't hesitate, didn't question. She ran, her hand finding his in the dark, trusting him completely as gunfire erupted behind them. Muzzle flashes lit the corridor in strobe light bursts, but they were already gone, moving through spaces Gu Hyojun knew by heart. They burst into the gardens as lights began flickering back to life. Behind them, shouts and confusion. Ahead, the perimeter wall. "This way." Gu Hyojun pulled her toward what looked like solid hedge. But when they pushed through, Katie found a service gate, cunningly concealed. An escape route he'd prepared years ago, waiting for the day he'd need it. They emerged onto a side street where a car sat waiting, engine running. Not one of Gu Hyojun's usual luxury vehicles. This was anonymous, stolen probably, perfect for disappearing. Katie collapsed into the passenger seat, her heart trying to break free of her ribs. What the hell just happened? "I had Young-ho cut the power grid remotely," Gu Hyojun said, pulling into traffic with practiced calm. "Elias thinks he knows all my resources, but there are some loyalties he never suspected. Some people who remember what my father built and hate what my mother became. He's going to come after us. Yes, we can't go back to the penthouse. Can't access any of your properties. He'll have them all watched." "Yes." Katie looked at him. His profile was sharp in the streetlights, beautiful and terrible and absolutely certain. "So what do we do?" Gu Hyojun's hand found hers, squeezing once. "We do what you wanted from the beginning. We stop running from the darkness and we burn everyone who hurt us until there's nothing left but ash and our throne." His words should have frightened her. Instead, they ignited something fierce and primal in Katie's chest. She'd come to Los Angeles seeking justice, but justice was a lie people told themselves to sleep at night. What she wanted now was vengeance. Power. The kind of ruthless authority that made people afraid to even speak their names. "Then let's start with Elias," she said. "Let's show him what happens when you make enemies of people with nothing left to lose." Gu Hyojun's smile was savage and beautiful. "That's my queen." And as they drove into the city's neon-lit darkness, 2 damaged people preparing for war, Katie realized something that should have terrified her. She didn't want to be saved anymore. She wanted to reign. The safe house was a warehouse in an industrial district where questions weren't asked, and security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. Young-ho had been waiting when they arrived, along with 3 other men Katie recognized from the Gilded Pearl. Loyalists who'd bet on her that first night. Now they were betting their lives on this war. "Elias has moved fast," Young-ho reported, his English heavily accented but clear. He's calling emergency meetings with all the regional bosses. Says you've gone rogue, stolen from Madam Park. He's offering rewards for information on your location. What about my mother? Gu Hyojun asked. He'd shed his tactical gear, but the dangerous energy remained. He looked like violence barely contained in human skin. No one's seen her since last night. Her estate is locked down tight. Young-ho's expression was grim. If Elias got to her first. He didn't kill her, Katie interrupted. All eyes turned to her. He needs her alive. She's his legitimacy, his connection to the old power structure. Without her blessing, half the organization won't follow him. Gu Hyojun nodded slowly. So he's holding her somewhere, using her as a figurehead while he consolidates control, which means we have a window, Katie said, before he's secured enough loyalty to come after us properly. What kind of window? Young-ho asked. Katie met Gu Hyojun's gaze, saw the same ruthless calculation she felt burning in her own chest. 48 hours, maybe. 2 days to gather our own forces, strike before he expects it, and take back what's ours. Ours? One of the other men, a lean enforcer named June, spoke up. No offense, Miss Duncan, but you've been with us for weeks. This is his empire, not. She bleeds for it now. Gu Hyojun cut him off, his voice sharp. She's fought for it, risked everything for it. That makes her as much a part of this organization as anyone in this room. More than most. He turned to Katie. If you want to walk away now, I understand. This isn't your fight. Your brother's killer is Elias, and we know where to find him. You could. No. Katie's voice was flat, final. I'm not walking away. Not from this. Not from you. The warehouse went silent. Katie felt the weight of every gaze, measuring her, judging her. She'd stepped into their world as an outsider, an infiltrator, but standing there in blood-stained clothes, her hands still shaking from adrenaline, she realized she'd become something else. A believer, a partner, a queen in the making. Then we need to move quickly, Gu Hyojun said, accepting her decision without question. Young-ho, contact everyone on the list we prepared. Tell them the truth. Elias is a traitor. My mother is compromised, and I'm claiming what's mine by right. Anyone who stands with me will be rewarded. Anyone who stands against me will be eliminated. That's going to start a war, June said quietly. We're already at war. I'm just making the terms clear. Gu Hyojun's gaze swept the room. I know what I'm asking. You've all served my family for years. Some of you remember my father. You've watched me become what my mother shaped me into. Ruthless, controlled, without mercy. And now I'm asking you to follow me into something that might destroy us all. He paused, and Katie saw the vulnerability there beneath the armor. This man who commanded through fear and respect was asking, not demanding, offering them a choice. But I promise you this, Gu Hyojun continued. If we win, when we win, things will change. No more hiding behind legitimate fronts. No more pretending we're something we're not. We'll build something honest in its brutality. An empire that doesn't apologize for its darkness. Young-ho stepped forward first, dropped to one knee in a gesture so formally reverent it made Katie's breath catch. I follow you, unto death. One by one, the others knelt. June, the 2 younger enforcers whose names Katie hadn't learned, all of them bowing before their chosen king. Gu Hyojun's jaw tightened with emotion he couldn't quite hide. Get up, all of you. We don't have time for ceremony. Then make time. Katie stepped beside him, her hand finding his. They're pledging their lives to you, to us. That deserves acknowledgement. He looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, maybe. Or recognition that she understood this world in ways he hadn't expected. Thank you, Gu Hyojun said simply, for your loyalty, your trust. I won't forget it. The men rose, purpose radiating from them. Young-ho began barking orders. Who to contact, what resources to secure, how to establish a defensive perimeter. The warehouse transformed into a war room. Katie found herself pulled into a corner by Gu Hyojun, away from the organized chaos. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones with heartbreaking gentleness. You should hate me, he said quietly. Everything that's happened to you. Your brother, this war, the danger. It's all connected to my family, to me. You should run as far and fast as you can. Katie covered his hands with hers. I should, but I won't. Why? She'd asked herself that question 1,000 times since that first night at the Gilded Pearl. Why had she stayed? Why had she allowed herself to care about a man who embodied everything she should despise? The answer was both simple and impossibly complex. Because I see you, Katie said. Not the mask you wear. Not the monster your mother created. I see the man who held his father's hand while he died, who kneels to tend his enemy's wounds, who's capable of tenderness and brutality in equal measure. She stepped closer, until their bodies were nearly touching. You're darkness, Hyojun. But so am I, and I'd rather burn beside you than freeze alone in the light. He kissed her then. Not gently, not carefully, but with the desperation of a man who'd just been offered absolution. Katie responded with equal intensity, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, closer, until there was no space between them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Gu Hyojun rested his forehead against hers. After this is over, after we've won, I want to make this official. Official how? Marry me. The words were soft but absolute. Not because I need you, though God knows I do. Not because it's strategic, though it would be. Marry me because I can't imagine ruling this empire with anyone else. Because you're the only person who's ever looked at my darkness and not flinched. Katie's heart stuttered. She'd dreamed of romance as a girl, flowers and poetry and gentle devotion. This was nothing like those dreams. This was a blood oath wrapped in silk, a promise forged in violence and sealed with desperate need. It was perfect. Yes, she whispered. But not until Elias is dead. Not until we've won. I want to marry you as a queen, not as a fugitive. Gu Hyojun's smile was devastating. Then let's give you your throne. They spent the next 2 days gathering forces. Gu Hyojun called in favors owed to his father, reached out to captains who'd chafed under his mother's control. Katie worked alongside him, her presence beside him a statement of unity that couldn't be ignored. By the morning of the 3rd day, they had 23 confirmed loyalists, and twice that many who were waiting to see which way the wind blew. It's enough, Katie said, studying their makeshift war map. Elias won't expect us to strike so soon. He's still consolidating power, still convinced he has time. The engagement party is tonight, Gu Hyojun added. He's hosting it at the penthouse, making a statement about who owns what now. Katie felt cold fury crystallize in her chest. Then we take it back. Publicly. In front of everyone he's trying to impress. It'll be dangerous. He'll have security. Good. Katie's smile was sharp. Let him feel safe. Let him think he's won. And then we'll show him what real power looks like. They moved through the day with focused intensity, coordinating their forces, planning approach vectors, identifying targets. Yong-ho would lead the main assault team. Jun would secure exit routes. The younger enforcers would handle crowd control. And Katie and Gu Hyojun would walk through the front door like they owned the place. Because they did. Night fell. Katie dressed in midnight blue silk that clung to her curves. Not tactical gear this time, but armor of a different kind. The dress whispered power and danger with every movement. She left her hair down, wild curls framing her face, war paint disguised as beauty. Gu Hyojun appeared in a black suit that transformed him from crime lord to something more dangerous, a king reclaiming his throne. His eyes tracked over her body with possessive appreciation. You look like vengeance dressed in silk, he said. Good. Katie slid a knife into a thigh holster hidden beneath the dress. That's exactly what I am. They arrived at the penthouse building as guests were still entering. Society's elite, drawn by the promise of scandal and the magnetic pull of power-changing hands. They didn't look twice at Gu Hyojun and Katie. Just another beautiful couple in a city full of them. The elevator ride up was silent. Katie felt her heart hammering, but her hands were steady. This was it. The moment everything changed or everything ended. The penthouse doors opened onto transformed space. What had been their intimate sanctuary was now packed with bodies, politicians, crime bosses, society wives who pretended not to know what their husbands did for money. Champagne flowed, music played, and at the center of it all stood Elias Thorne, playing host with practiced charm. He didn't see them at first. Too busy accepting congratulations, fielding questions about where Gu Hyojun had gone. Katie watched him work the room and felt her rage burn hotter. This man had killed Marcus, had betrayed Gu Hyojun, had tried to steal an empire through manipulation and murder. Tonight, He'd pay for every sin. Ready? Gu Hyojun's voice was soft beside her. Katie took his hand, squeezed once. Let's remind him whose house this is. They stepped into the crowd. The reaction was immediate. Conversations died. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Every eye in the room locked onto them with varying degrees of shock, fear, and calculation. And Elias. Elias went absolutely still. Gu Hyojun moved through the crowd with Katie at his side, their presence parting the guests like a blade through silk. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply watched as the presumed dead crime lord walked back into his own home and stood before the man who'd tried to steal it. Elias. Gu Hyojun's voice was casual, conversational. Lovely party. I don't recall being invited. Elias recovered quickly. Katie had to give him credit for that. His expression smoothed into something approaching concern. Hyojun, thank God. We've been so worried. Your mother has been desperate for news of... Don't. The single word cracked like a gunshot. Don't insult us both by pretending concern. Where is she? Elias's eyes darted to the crowd, calculating. His security was positioned throughout the room. Katie counted 6, maybe 7 men, trying to look like regular guests. Not enough to control this situation if it turned violent. Not nearly enough to stop what was coming. Your mother is safe, Elias said carefully. Resting at an undisclosed location while we deal with the aftermath of your... episode. My episode? Gu Hyojun smiled, and it was terrifying. Is that what we're calling attempted murder now? The crowd gasped. Phones appeared, cameras activating. This was Los Angeles. Scandal was currency, and they were witnessing the transaction of the century. You're not well, Elias continued, his voice taking on a soothing quality that made Katie want to hit him. The stress of recent events, your father's death, Katie's influence, it's all been too much. But we can get you help. We can. Where's my mother? Gu Hyojun repeated. His control was starting to crack, rage bleeding through. Last chance to answer willingly. Elias's expression hardened. He'd realized this wasn't going to end peacefully. You want the truth? She's exactly where she belongs. Locked away while people who actually understand this business take control. She built something magnificent through fear. But fear isn't enough anymore. We need legitimacy. Respectability. Things neither of you can provide. Things you can? Katie spoke for the first time, her voice cutting through the tension. You, who murdered an innocent man to cover your tracks, who betrayed everyone who trusted you. That's your legitimacy? Elias finally looked at her, and Katie saw true contempt there. Your brother was weak. You're a distraction. And this performance, he gestured at them, is pathetic. You've already lost. The organization is mine. This building is mine. All you're doing is making your eventual elimination messier than it needs to be. Katie felt Gu Hyojun tense beside her, felt the violence coiling in him like a spring. But before he could move, before either of them could act, Elias made his mistake. He gestured to his security. The men moved forward, hands sliding toward concealed weapons. The crowd scattered, self-preservation, overriding curiosity. In seconds, the penthouse transformed from elegant party to battlefield. And then Young-ho and his team crashed through the service entrance. What followed was chaos. Gunfire shattered champagne glasses. Guards went down under coordinated strikes. Guests screamed and fled toward the exits, trampling expensive furniture in their panic. Katie moved on instinct, her body remembering every fight, every lesson. A guard swung at her. She ducked, drove her knife up under his ribs, twisted. He dropped. She was already moving, her silk dress flowing around her legs like water, beautiful and deadly. Gu Hyojun fought beside her, and together they were devastating. Where he was surgical precision, she was raw fury. They moved in perfect synchronization, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. Through it all, Elias was trying to reach the private elevator, his escape route. Katie saw him moving through the chaos and felt something snap inside her. "He's mine!" she shouted to Gu Hyojun. He glanced back, understood immediately. "Go." Katie ran, her heels abandoned, bare feet finding purchase on blood-slicked marble. Elias had reached the elevator, was slamming his palm against the call button with increasing desperation. She caught him 3 feet from salvation. Katie spun him around and drove her fist into his perfect teeth. Felt bone crunch. Blood sprayed. Elias stumbled backward, shock and pain warring on his face. You killed my brother, she said, advancing on him. You framed him, tortured him, murdered him, and you call it necessary. Elias tried to run. Katie kicked his legs out from under him. He went down hard, his expensive suit tearing on broken glass. Please, he gasped. Katie, please, I can explain. Explain? She laughed, the sound jagged and broken. Explain how murdering an innocent man was just business? How betraying everyone who trusted you was strategy? There's nothing you can say that will save you. She pulled him up by his collar, slammed him against the wall beside the elevator. The penthouse had gone quiet around them. The fighting over. Young-ho's team victorious. Everyone was watching now, watching her claim her vengeance. Where's Madam Park? She demanded. Elias spit blood. Fuck you. Katie's knee found his groin. He doubled over, whimpering. Where is she? The estate. He finally choked out. The wine cellar. Real one, not the vault. She's locked in there, alive, I swear. Katie looked to Gu Hyojun. He nodded once. Confirmation that the location made sense. Thank you, Katie said softly to Elias. Then she drove her knife into his shoulder, pinning him to the wall. He screamed. That's for Marcus, for making him die alone and afraid, for stealing his chance at redemption. She stepped back, watched him struggle against the blade, blood spreading across expensive silk wallpaper. Finish him, Gu Hyojun said quietly, offering her his gun. Katie took the weapon, felt the weight of it in her hand. One bullet, one trigger pull, and Marcus's killer would be gone. She raised the gun. Elias stared at her, pain and fear and understanding in his eyes. He knew he was dead, knew there was no escape, no reprieve. Do it, he whispered. Get it over with. Katie's finger tightened on the trigger, and then she lowered the gun. No, she said. Death is mercy. You don't deserve mercy. She turned to Young-ho. Take him to the warehouse. Keep him alive. I want him to watch everything he tried to steal burn to ash. I want him to see us rule. And then, only then, I'll let him die. Young-ho grinned, understanding immediately. Yes, ma'am. As they dragged Elias away, his screams echoing through the penthouse, Katie felt Gu Hyojun's presence behind her. His arms came around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. That was either brilliant or insane, he murmured against her hair. Maybe both. Katie leaned into him, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness. Is it over? Not yet. We still need to find my mother. Free her. Or what? His arms tightened around her. Or decide if freeing her is really what's best for us. Katie turned in his embrace, understanding the weight of what he wasn't saying. Madam Park alive was a threat, someone who'd controlled him for years, who had decades of connections and influence, someone who might never forgive this coup. But Madam Park dead made them irredeemable. Patricide, matricide. The ultimate betrayal in any culture, but especially theirs. We free her, Katie said firmly. We free her, and then we negotiate. She can retire with dignity, maintain her status as matriarch, even keep her wealth. But the operational control passes to you, to us. You think she'll accept that? I think she's a pragmatist. And pragmatists understand when they've lost. Katie pressed her palm to his chest. Besides, keeping her alive makes you look merciful, gives you moral authority. You freed your mother from the man who'd imprisoned her, even after everything she'd done. Gu Hyojun stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, the sound rich and genuine. You're terrifying. You know that? I learned from the best. She kissed him softly. Now let's go rescue your mother and finish winning our throne. They found Madam Park exactly where Elias said she'd be. Locked in the wine cellar beneath her estate, surrounded by bottles worth millions and utterly alone. She looked smaller than Katie remembered, diminished by captivity, her elegant clothes rumpled, her perfect hair disheveled. But her eyes still burned with that cold intelligence that had built an empire. When Gu Hyojun opened the door, she simply stared at him. No relief, no gratitude, just assessment. So, she said in Korean, her voice rough from disuse. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? Gu Hyojun replied in the same language. Katie stood beside him, understanding enough from context even though the rapid Korean was beyond her. She watched the two of them, mother and son, circling each other with words like predators, establishing dominance. Finally, Madam Park switched to English. A courtesy for Katie, or perhaps a power play. You've made quite the mess, she said, her gaze finally acknowledging Katie's presence. My organization in chaos. My most trusted advisor revealed as a traitor. And you've brought a stranger into our world as your partner. Your father would be ashamed. My father would understand, Gu Hyojun said quietly. He loved you, but he also saw what you were becoming. What you forced me to become. I made you strong. I made you feared. I made you into someone who could survive in this world. You made me into a weapon. There's a difference. Silence stretched between them. Katie felt the weight of years of pain, manipulation, and twisted love hanging in the air. I'm taking control, Gu Hyojun said finally. Operational control of the JBL. You can keep your title, your status, your wealth. But the decisions, the direction of the organization, that's mine now. Madam Park's laugh was bitter. And if I say no, then I'll take it anyway. But I'd prefer to do this with your blessing, with respect for everything you've built. He stepped closer. I'm not trying to destroy your legacy, Mother. I'm trying to evolve it, to build something that doesn't require blackmail and fear to sustain itself. Idealistic fool. But there was something almost fond in her tone. You sound like your father. Good. He was a better person than either of us. Madam Park's gaze shifted to Katie, studied her with uncomfortable intensity. And you, the fighter, the outsider. You think you can handle this world? You think loving my son will protect you? Katie met her stare without flinching. I don't need protection. I've survived this world's worst already. And I'm not just loving your son. I'm ruling beside him. Whether you accept that or not is your choice. But it's happening. A smile ghosted across Madam Park's lips. Bold, foolish, but bold. She looked back at Gu Hyojun. You're serious about this girl? Her name is Katie. And yes, I'm marrying her, making her my partner in every sense. His voice was firm. That's non-negotiable. Another long silence. Then Madam Park sighed, the sound carrying decades of weariness. Very well. I accept your terms. You lead the organization. I retire to advisory status. And your, Katie, will stand beside you. Relief flooded through Katie, but she kept her expression neutral. This wasn't victory yet. Just the first step. But understand this, Madam Park continued, her voice hardening. If you fail, if your sentimentality, your mercy, your love weakens the JBL, I will take it back. I will destroy everything you've built, including her, and I will do it without remorse. Are we clear? Crystal, Gu Hyojun said. They left her there in the wine cellar, not imprisoned but not freed either. A symbolic space between old power and new. Young-ho's team would move her to a secure location, somewhere comfortable but controlled. In the car, heading back toward the city, Katie finally allowed herself to feel the enormity of what they'd accomplished. We did it, she said quietly. We actually did it. Gu Hyojun's hand found hers. You did it. You gave me the courage to challenge her, to believe I deserved freedom. We gave each other courage. Katie squeezed his fingers. That's what partnership means. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights grow closer. Then Gu Hyojun pulled the car over at a scenic overlook, the kind where teenagers came to make out and dream about futures that might actually happen. He turned to face her, his expression serious. I meant what I said, about marrying you, about making you my queen. I know, but I need you to understand what that means. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. This isn't romance, Katie. This is a blood oath. A binding that makes us inseparable in every way. Business, legal, spiritual. If you take this ring, you're taking on everything that comes with me. The danger, the darkness, the violence. There's no halfway. No casual commitment. Katie took the box with trembling hands, opened it to reveal a ring that took her breath away. A black diamond surrounded by smaller blood-red rubies. It was beautiful and terrifying, exactly like the man offering it. I don't want halfway, she said. I don't want casual. I want the darkness, Hyojun. I want to burn so bright beside you that the whole world has to look away. His smile was devastating. Then wear my ring, rule my empire, become the queen of the Shadow Clan. Katie slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, of course. He'd known her size, Probably from watching her hands wrap before fights, from memorizing every detail about her. The moment the ring settled into place, something shifted, not just between them, but in Katie herself. She felt the weight of responsibility, the intoxicating pull of power, the dangerous certainty that she'd finally found where she belonged. Not in the light, seeking justice and redemption, but in the shadows, claiming power and vengeance. Gu Hyojun pulled her into his arms, and Katie went willingly, her lips finding his in a kiss that tasted of victory and promises too dark for daylight. His hands slid into her hair, holding her close as the kiss deepened into something desperate and consuming. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you," he said simply. "I don't know when it happened or how, but somewhere between you spilling soju on me and you standing over Elias with murder in your eyes, I fell completely in love with you." Tears burned Katie's eyes. She'd given up on love after Marcus died, convinced herself she didn't deserve it, didn't need it. But hearing those words from Gu Hyojun's lips, she realized she'd been lying to herself. She'd needed this, needed him, needed someone who could look at her darkness and not just accept it, but worship it. "I love you too," she whispered. "My monster, my king." They kissed again, softer this time, sealing their blood oath with something almost tender, almost innocent, almost. 6 months later, Katie stood in the penthouse and barely recognized her life. The space had been renovated after the battle, bloodstains cleaned, bullet holes patched, broken glass replaced. But they'd kept the essential darkness, the elegant brutality that made it theirs. Now it was truly their throne room. She wore a black silk robe, her natural hair freed from its usual controlled style, wild curls framing her face. The ring on her finger caught the city lights, black diamond glinting like a promise. Mrs. Gu Hyojun. Katie Duncan had died the night she'd married him in a private ceremony, attended only by their most trusted allies. She'd taken his name, his world, his darkness, and in return, she'd given him her absolute loyalty, her strategic mind, her capacity for beautiful violence. Together, they were building something magnificent and terrible. The door opened. Gu Hyojun entered, shedding his jacket, loosening his tie. He looked exhausted. They'd been consolidating power, eliminating resistance, restructuring the organization's operations. The work was brutal and endless. But when his eyes found Katie, his expression softened into something approaching peace. "How did the meeting go?" she asked. "Better than expected. The Los Angeles families have formally recognized our authority. No more challenges, no more threats." He crossed to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "We've won, Katie. Actually won." She accepted the glass, took a sip. "What about Elias?" Gu Hyojun's expression hardened. "Still alive. Still suffering. Young-ho says he's broken completely, begging for death every day." "Good." Katie felt no pity. Only satisfaction that Marcus's killer was experiencing a fraction of the pain he'd caused. "When do you want to end it?" Katie considered. She'd promised herself she wouldn't let Elias die until she'd built something he could never touch, never corrupt, until she stood so firmly in power that his betrayal was just a footnote in her rise. "Soon," she said. "Maybe next week. Let him see us happy one more time. Let him understand how completely he failed." Gu Hyojun moved behind her, his arms circling her waist, pulling her back against his chest. His lips found the curve of her neck, pressing soft kisses that made her breath catch. "Have I told you today that you're magnificent?" he murmured against her skin. "Not in the last hour," Katie said, tilting her head to give him better access. "Then I'm remiss." His hands slid beneath her robe, finding warm skin. "You're magnificent, terrifying, the most dangerous woman in Los Angeles, and you're mine." Katie turned in his arms, her hands framing his face. "Just as you're mine." They kissed, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that spoke of total possession and absolute trust. Katie's robe slipped from her shoulders. Gu Hyojun's shirt joined it on the floor. They'd made love countless times in the past 6 months. Sometimes gentle, sometimes brutal, always intense. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like celebration, like the final sealing of their blood oath. He lifted her easily, carrying her to their bedroom. The space was dark, intimate, lit only by the city beyond the windows. He laid her down on silk sheets, the color of midnight, his body covering hers with careful weight. "I want you to know something," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Everything I am, everything I've built, everything I'll become, it's yours. Completely. Forever. Katie's throat tightened. And everything I am is yours. My darkness, my rage, my love. All of it. Until death and beyond. They came together then, skin against skin, breath mingling, bodies moving in perfect synchronization. It wasn't just sex. It was communion, confirmation, the physical manifestation of their unbreakable bond. Gu Hyojun was reverent in his possession, his hands mapping her body like sacred territory, his mouth worshipping every curve and scar. Katie responded with equal intensity, claiming him as thoroughly as he claimed her. Two damaged souls completing each other in the only way that mattered. When they finally peaked together, crying out in unison, it felt like conquering and surrendering simultaneously, like becoming something greater than the sum of their individual darkness. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets and each other, hearts slowly returning to normal rhythms. Gu Hyojun's fingers traced idle patterns on Katie's shoulder. She pressed her ear to his chest, listening to the steady beat that had become her favorite sound. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this path? Becoming what you've become?" Katie considered the question seriously. She thought of Marcus, of the innocent girl she'd been before his death, thought of the dreams she'd abandoned, the light she'd deliberately walked away from. "No," she said finally. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the pain that brought me here. But I don't regret the choice. This life, this power, you, it's mine. I claimed it, built it, and I'll defend it with everything I am. Even if it costs your soul." She lifted her head to meet his gaze. "I don't believe in souls anymore. I believe in power, in loyalty, in the empire we're building together. That's enough." Gu Hyojun's smile was soft and devastating. "Then we're perfect for each other. Two soulless monsters ruling the darkness." "Exactly." Katie kissed him once, softly. "Now let's clean up our mess." The next week, they gave Elias his release. It happened in the same warehouse where they'd planned their coup. The space transformed into something between a court and an execution chamber. Their key allies were present. Young-ho, June, the captains who'd chosen their side. Elias was brought in on his knees, a broken shell of the elegant man he'd been. 6 months of captivity had destroyed him. His expensive taste in clothes reduced to rags. His careful grooming replaced by unkempt hair and beard. His arrogant confidence shattered into whimpering compliance. Katie felt nothing looking at him. No satisfaction, no pity. Just cold acknowledgement that justice, however brutal, had been served. "Elias Thorne," Gu Hyojun said formally, "you were tried in absentia for treason, murder, and betrayal. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict, death. Do you have any final words?" Elias looked up, his eyes finding Katie's face. "I'm sorry," he croaked. "For your brother. For everything. I thought I was doing what was necessary, but I was wrong. I was so wrong." Katie stepped forward, knelt so she was eye level with him. "You were wrong. Marcus was a good man trying to fix his mistake. You murdered him for convenience, for ambition, and you've spent 6 months paying for that sin. Please," Elias whispered. "Please, just make it stop." "It stops now." Katie stood, looked at Gu Hyojun. "Make it quick. He's suffered enough." Gu Hyojun drew his weapon, placed it against Elias's temple. "This is for everyone you betrayed, everyone you hurt. May your death serve as warning to anyone else who thinks about crossing us." The shot was clean, final. Elias slumped sideways, his suffering ended in an instant. The warehouse was silent. Then Young-ho stepped forward, bowing deeply. "It's done. Justice is served." The other captains followed suit. The formal acknowledgement that the old betrayal had been addressed. The new order affirmed. Katie felt Gu Hyojun's hand find hers. She squeezed back, grateful for the anchor. They left the warehouse together, stepping out into the bright Los Angeles sunlight. It felt strange, jarring. They'd been living in darkness for so long that daylight seemed like an intrusion. But Katie realized something as they walked to their car, fingers intertwined, power radiating from them like heat. They didn't need to hide anymore. Didn't need to operate in shadows or pretend to be less than they were. They were the king and queen of the Shadow Clan, and they ruled absolutely. 3 months later, Katie stood before a mirror in their bedroom, adjusting her dress for the annual gala. the same event where everything had started, now transformed into a celebration of their reign. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the scared waitress infiltrating enemy territory. Gone was the broken sister seeking revenge. In her place stood a queen, powerful, dangerous, absolutely certain of her place in the world. The dress was blood-red silk, cut to emphasize her curves, designed to command attention. Her hair was styled in elegant curls. The black diamond ring glinted on her finger. She looked like violence wrapped in beauty. Gu Hyojun appeared behind her in the mirror, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her back against him. "Ready to face our subjects?" he asked, amusement in his voice. "Always." Katie turned, straightening his bow tie. "Though I have to say, I preferred when we were the ones crashing parties, not hosting them. We can still crash something later if you want." His smile was wicked. "Maybe that charity event the mayor's hosting. Show up uninvited, make everyone uncomfortable." Katie laughed. "You're terrible, and you love me for it." "I do." She kissed him softly. "I really do." They arrived at the Gilded Pearl, their restaurant, their territory, to find it transformed for the gala. The same venue where Katie had served drinks now hosted the city's most powerful people, all of them there to pay homage to the new regime. Katie walked through the crowd with Gu Hyojun at her side, accepting greetings, acknowledging bows, radiating authority. These people feared them, respected them, would never dare cross them. It was intoxicating. Madame Park was there, holding court in a corner with the other matriarchs. When Katie approached to pay respects, the older woman's gaze was sharp but not hostile. "You've surprised me," Madame Park said in her careful English. "I expected you to be a distraction, a phase he'd outgrow. But you've proven yourself formidable." "Thank you," Katie replied, genuinely pleased by the acknowledgement. "Don't thank me yet. I'm still watching, still waiting for you to make a mistake." But Madame Park's smile took the edge off the words. "Though I admit, you've been remarkably competent so far. My son chose well." Katie nodded once, then moved on. She'd never be friends with Madame Park. Too much history, too much pain. But mutual respect was enough. The night progressed in a blur of conversations and performances. Katie and Gu Hyojun moved through the crowd as one unit, their partnership evident in every glance, every touch, every shared smile. Near midnight, they slipped away to a private balcony overlooking the city. The party continued inside, but out here it was just them and the stars and the empire they'd built. "Do you remember," Gu Hyojun said, "that first night? When you spilled soju on me and chose to fight instead of apologize?" Katie laughed. "How could I forget? I was terrified, convinced you'd kill me. I almost did. But then I saw you in that ring, fierce and beautiful and absolutely unbreakable, and I thought, this woman is dangerous." He turned to face her fully. "I had no idea how right I was. Dangerous to you? Dangerous to my control. My carefully constructed walls. You shattered all of it, Katie. Made me feel things I'd convinced myself I was incapable of feeling." His thumb brushed her cheek. "You saved me from the monster I was becoming." Katie caught his hand, pressing it firmly against her face. "And you gave me permission to become the monster I needed to be. So I'd say we're even." They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to make it their kingdom. "I love you," Gu Hyojun said. "My queen, my partner, my everything." "I love you," Katie replied. "My monster, my king, my home." They kissed as the city sprawled beneath them, a million lights marking territory that was theirs to command. The darkness wasn't their enemy anymore. It was their element, their power source, their throne. And from this darkness, they would rule absolutely, not as hero and villain, not as victim and avenger, but as king and queen of the Shadow Clan. Two broken people who'd become something magnificent in their shared darkness. Together, forever, unbreakable.